Atlanta court has recently awarded Cardi B $1.25 million in a defamation lawsuit against celebrity news blogger Tasha K for falsely stating that the Grammy-winning rapper used cocaine, had contracted STDs, and engaged in prostitution. This is a landmark case. This will influence how social media comments and topics are discussed. We will discuss it in this video, how this is going to set the precedent for future content, for gossip channels, for news media sites, and more importantly, your takeaways and lessons so that you don't become an example. This is the legal code, and on this channel we discuss a wide range of legal topics so that you can be informed citizens. If you like that sort of thing, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course share. She don't switch positions and she plays the role. Now, without further ado, Tasha K and Cardi B. So the judge in Atlanta found Latasha Kibi, known as Tasha K, and her company liable for defamation, invasion of privacy, intentional infliction of emotional distress against the rapper. As of Tuesday, Tasha K's lawyers said that they disagree with the verdict and they plan to file an appeal, likely to decrease the damages awarded to Cardi B. So this squabble began back in 2018, where Tasha K started targeting the rapper in 2018 by making extremely disparaging remarks about the entertainer on her YouTube channel. Particularly, the statements that led to the lawsuit were done on a September 19th video, where Tasha K published a video where she did an interview with a woman who claimed to have known Cardi B prior to Cardi B's music career. So this woman came on the channel and was interviewed by Tasha K, and the woman said that she knew Cardi B to have contracted STDs, working as a prostitute, and using cocaine. So as you could see, extremely inflammatory and disparaging remarks. Now, of course, Cardi B vehemently denied the statements, and shortly after the video was published, Cardi B's lawyer sent a cease and desist letter to Tasha K to take down the video and to refrain from speaking about Cardi B in this way. Instead of complying, which would have been the sensible thing to do, instead Tasha K doubled down on the initial statements and then went on to publish another video only a few days later, claiming that everything said in the previous video was true, and then she added even more details saying that Cardi B was also cheating on her husband. So as you could see, Tasha K was not backing down and was not taking heed, even though Cardi B took the steps to have her lawyer involved. Rule of thumb: if someone sends you a cease and desist letter, probably best to speak to your attorney and think about negotiating. Tasha K wasn't even finished then. She then proceeded to attack Cardi B and make more false statements about her on her social media for months and months and months after. So this didn't even stop with the first two videos. It continued. And then of course, Cardi B lawyered up and a lawsuit ensued. Now, Cardi B's legal team stated that as a result of the salacious statement, Cardi B suffered emotionally, of course, suffered embarrassment, humiliation, mental anguish, emotional distress. I mean, the statements are so extremely disparaging. This is all reasonable for someone to suffer. Furthermore, they affected Cardi B's career, causing damages to her reputation, her character within her profession and industry, among her fans, also with prospective business relations. So Cardi B is saying that this hurt her economically, which is extremely important in libel cases, especially with a public figure. So Cardi B is saying that as a result of these statements, businesses distanced themselves from her and she suffered economically. Also, the initial lawsuit that named the woman that Tasha K interviewed in the September interview, she was initially named, but then eventually her name was removed from the pleadings because her pockets. I mean, she doesn't have the platform that Tasha K has, so it was sensible for Cardi B's team to remove her. So Tasha K was the target. Now, Tasha K said in court filings responding to the lawsuit that after she published the September 19, 2018, this is Tasha K's defense, that Cardi B reached out to her via private message about the interview and was angry because of personal details about her had been released and revealed to the public. So Tasha K told Cardi B that she wasn't interested in having a conversation via private message and encouraged her to come on to her channel to tell her truth. So this was Tasha K baiting Cardi B to come on the channel. Of course, this would increase traffic and viewing. So that was probably her rationale encouraging Cardi B to come on the channel. That she wasn't taking down the video, she wanted even more attention regarding this. Cardi B, of course, declined and instead went on a rampage on Instagram, publishing numerous videos about Tasha K, saying that Tasha K is a liar and publicly trashing Tasha K. Tasha K is not a credible channel and that she always makes false stories about Cardi B, and she's been harassing Cardi B for some time now, and she uses Cardi B's name for clickbait because at this time, if you remember, Cardi B was ascending professional. She was doing really well. So Tasha K was using the success to bring light to her channel. Tasha K claimed to have been receiving threats on Instagram and harassing calls on her phone, as well as her home address was made public. She said that she feared for her life and the life of her family, and that she had to reach out to an Atlanta FBI office. And the FBI agent advised her that it'd be best if she moved and find another place to live, because her address was public. If she feared for her life, then it'd be advisable to move to a different city in another county and change her phone number. So Tasha K took this advice, relocated, changed her phone number. Tasha K also filed counterclaims against Cardi B, saying that the rapper encouraged her associates and fans to threaten and harass her, claiming that Cardi B and her associate engaged in a pattern of intimidation and harassment against Tasha K and her family when they threatened physical violence against her. In addition to the fear and anxiety, Tasha K suffered also dealing with the high-risk pregnancy, that she was emotionally distraught because of these threats, and that she had to incur unexpected expenses because of her relocation, because having to move homes. And so my question is, why didn't Tasha K think about the possible outcome of retaliation? Cardi B is not a person to back down from anything, and we saw that early in her career. When she released such disparaging remarks about Cardi B, it seemed rather disingenuous and lacking foresight to now claim, oh my God, I can't believe these people are threatening me. I'm not saying it was right, but I'm saying it's reasonable given the circumstances and the magnitude of the statements that Tasha K was putting out into the world. Tasha K's lawyers also brought charges against Cardi B, including assault. I don't know where they got assault for, because there was no physical interaction between the two. In order to have an assault, there has to actually be physical assault, like someone touching someone else. The legal team also brought intentional infliction of emotional distress, and that Cardi B should be required to pay damages and attorney fees. Of course, these charges were dismissed because there was no proof, there was no evidence of physical assault, and there was no evidence of emotional distress. There was no proof that Cardi B was the actual cause of any alleged assault or emotional distress. So I just think this was Tasha K's legal team just throwing anything in there but the kitchen sink type of thing, just inundate the other legal team with paperwork. So as recently as Monday of this week, a jury awarded Cardi B over $1 million in punitive damage, $1 million in general damage, such as pain and suffering and reputational injury, as well as around $1.3 million in litigation expenses. And so she was also awarded $250,000 in medical expenses, but both of these parties agreed to reduce that amount to $25,000, totaling an award of $4 million. $4 million is nothing to sneeze at. That's a lot of money to pay for litigation expenses. So you must be asking, how did Cardi B win this? Why was Tasha K found to be guilty? Why were her statements unlawful? Well, Cardi B brought a libel defamation suit against the blogger. Libel and slander are types of defamatory statements. Libel is defamatory statement that is written. Slander is a statement that is said. It's an oral statement. And it's the publication of these false statements, putting it out into the world, false statements that damage someone's reputation. Defamatory statements are statements that are lies. They're not truthful statements, and they are cause of action if put out into the world. There's no First Amendment protection or freedom of speech for lies about another person. So what's the standard to win a libel or defamation lawsuit? This is very interesting because it's harder for a public figure, a person in the public eye, to win a libel lawsuit than it is for a private person. To win a libel lawsuit, a private person has to prove that the publisher acted with negligence in publishing the false statements. Now, negligence just means that the publisher didn't fact check, that they didn't do due diligence, their homework in verifying whether or not the information was true prior to publishing or putting it out into the world. So even if the publisher didn't know that the facts were, that it was false, when he or she published them, he could still be on the hook for libel if he should have known. If the simple act of fact checking would have resolved the issue, then that person could win the lawsuit. So as you can see, a very low threshold. Again, this is for a private person that has no fame attached to him and her. In contrast, to win a libel lawsuit, a public figure has to prove that the publisher acted with malice, actual malice. That's the legal terminology. Actual malice means that the publisher knew that the statements were false and published them anyway. The publisher had verified information that was contrary to what they were publishing and continued to publish and spread these rumors or statements. This is a lot harder to prove than negligence because here the victim of the libel has to show actual disregard for the truth, that the person knew that the statements were false and disregarded it, that they simply didn't care and wanted to say it anyway, which seems to have been the case with Tasha K. The different standards exist because public figures are typically at the center of matters of public concern. And so if journalists could be punished for every error in publishing a story about a public figure, they might avoid reporting on controversial topics that the public has a right to know. So this protects and insulates journalists. We don't want to censor journalists because we want journalists to do their jobs and provide information to us and to the public, even if controversial. So that's the rationale for the standard. Also an understanding that public figures generally have greater access to the media in order to counter any defamatory statements. They have publicists, they have legal teams, they have friends in high places that can pull stories if need be. The Kardashians are an example of a family that has a lot of clout and influence and power in controlling the narrative about their family. And so they have teamed up with, the best of the best in terms of publicists in order to control the narrative about them. Controversial stories still come out about them, but they have a way of chilling the stories that doesn't impact them economically or financially. Like, people still want to associate with the Kardashian. Now back to Cardi B and how Cardi B was successful in proving that the statements were false, but also in proving that Tasha K acted with malice and with reckless disregard of the truth. This was shown when Tasha K doubled down on the statements and continued to make the disparaging statements even after contacted by Cardi B and her legal team to refrain from saying this. When Tasha K refused to stop, that was the showing of the malice, even when presented with information that was contrary to this. And so Cardi B was also successful in showing the economic loss, that she lost jobs and her fan base, that she was affected in her ability to earn money because the statements were so outrageous and so callous that it caused businesses and her fan base to distance themselves from her. However, there's a caveat when a public person doesn't have to show economic damage, and that is when the statements are so salacious, dealing with sexual proclivity as well as criminal conduct. When the statements deal with sexual proclivity, that a person is sexually promiscuous, then the victim of the defamation doesn't even have to prove economic loss. It's already inherent that economic loss would occur when you make these sort of statements about somebody, which is the case with Cardi B. She didn't even have to prove economic loss, even though she suffered economic loss. And that's hats off to Cardi B's legal team and being thorough. Because the statements were about sexual impropriety, this was a slam dunk for Cardi B and easier for her legal team to prove because the statements were so inappropriate. Furthermore, punitive damage are considered punishment and are typically awarded at the court's discretion when the defendant's behavior is found to be especially harmful. So in this case, the court found, and this is a jury found, that Tasha K's statements were so deleterious, so harmful, so hurtful, injurious, and reckless that Tasha K deserved to be punished by paying extra in the aftermath. So Cardi B's victory is a cautionary tale to bloggers to be very mindful about what is said on the internet about celebrities or even non-celebrities. A lot of celebrity bloggers think social media is a free-for-all to say whatever one wants to say about a celebrity, because social media is sort of like the wild, wild west. There's no regulation, there's no oversight, there's no control. It's like you log on, there's no way to temper it. And while this is true to a certain extent, this is changing. As you can see, with anti-bullying campaigns and censorship across all platforms, speech is being regulated, and it probably should be. Furthermore, these celebrities have legal teams to take you down if they want to and make you pay for it. Newspapers and magazines, on the other hand, they have a legal strategy. They will fight back aggressively. The lawsuit will cost the celebrity hundreds of thousands of dollars and will probably drag on for years. And if you know anything about being in litigation, litigation is extremely expensive, it's costly, it's time consuming, it's corrosive, and it's exhausting. I found a newspaper article titled "How the Supermarket Tabloids Stay Out of Court." So it's very interesting, and I will link it below, but it's pretty much the legal strategy that tabloids and newspaper employ in order to avoid being sued for libel or for defamation. So the legal strategy is that tabloids will aggressively fight back. So the lawsuits will cost the celebrities hundreds of thousands of dollars, and probably drag on for years. And also, the tabloid's lawyers may be given legal permission to scrutinize the celebrity's personal life. So this almost often quashes the lawsuit because no celebrity wants more scrutiny on their personal affairs. They don't want more things about them brought to light in order to fight a defamation lawsuit. And they risk that if they do bring a defamation lawsuit. So once a lawyer whispers this into a celebrity's ear, they're often like, all right, I don't want to bring any things that I'm doing behind the scenes to light, so I'll just tolerate whatever is said about me in these articles and ignore it. Another strategy is that tabloids and the New York Times, for often, they employ a suite of the most lavish and expensive law firms to fight this for years and years and years. This is their job. This is their wheelhouse. All they do is fight these libel claims. What that is, it's costly and it's exhausting for the celebrity to constantly be back and forth to court because they want to move on with their life. Whereas these lawyers, this is just their day job. They're sending their children to, Harvard, Yale, Princeton. off of these high fees that the New York Times, the Inquirer, is willing to pay these lawyers, whereas the celebrity wants to move on with his or her life. So that's also a tactic. Also, the Inquirer's success in avoiding legal judgments stems from careful reporting and editing, and its reliance on legal advice throughout the editorial process. So lawyers are sitting in the room anytime a story is published during the creative process to make sure there's nothing defamatory that's being put out there into the world. The Inquirer, there's a group of about 4 lawyers from the firm that reads nearly every article before publication. So as you can see, lawyers are in the room during the creative process. Nothing is published without a lawyer reading it prior to publication and during the creative process. So this curtails any possibility of anything being said that's inappropriate or that could be said to be defamatory. Many bloggers do not have access to a suite of lawyers to comb through everything that's published. So those were the legal strategies, and something for you to think about when, if you're a celebrity blogger watching this, and how are you going to report on the lives. Just think, like, the New York Times could do this, and the Inquirer could do this, the Star magazine could do this, because they have a suite of lawyers combing through, verifying, fact-checking, making sure nothing said that is salacious and is untrue, is not truthful. So those are big shoes to fill. And also, a lot of these magazines are backed by the elite. Very few bloggers have the girth that the New York Times, the National Enquirer, Star magazine have to operate the way they do. They just can't afford it. It's costly. These are institutions that hire other institutions to protect them. An individual blogger just doesn't have that type of access, and that's okay. But I'll leave you with this. A lot of bloggers are encouraged to be salacious and controversial in order for more views. And their platform is dedicated to bashing other celebrities and other people. Their whole setup is to malign people in exchange for viewers, for advertisements, for what seems like success. But the mean-spiritedness of these statements, even if they were true, what was Tasha K's intention other than to hurt, humiliate, and shame another woman? She wanted to destroy Cardi B's name by washing out her mouth with Cardi B's name. And perhaps it worked for a short period of time. She got clickbait, she got viewers, she got advertisement. But Cardi B rose like a phoenix through the ashes to win this case. And like I say, this is a landmark case, very important case. The $4 million victory is nothing for Cardi B. It's probably like her 2022 wardrobe budget. But it's setting the precedence for bloggers to be held accountable for things that they put out into the world. Things that are said without being fact-checked. Also, interesting in hip-hop world, libel is very rarely fought in the hip-hop arena because it's understood to be like an adversarial thing, like with rap battles, the rap lyrics diss one another, etc. So it's embedded in the culture that you clown on one another. It's acceptable to make fun of one another in the lyrics. But times are changing, so I wonder if there will be libel lawsuits against other rappers because of a lyric that was said about another rapper. Because again, this sets a precedence. And when one celebrity wins a case like this, typically when a lawsuit is successfully fought, similar suits are brought to the courts due to the precedence that is set by the first case. Furthermore, the platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, they probably will begin policing comments too, because they don't want the smoke. They don't want to be held liable. YouTube is not going to side with content creators to take the fall. So 2022 may be the year where more libel lawsuits are brought. YouTube, Twitter, they're all already insulated, but I could see them even chilling it even more because they don't want the smoke, the pushback. The meanness going on social media platforms, this hopefully would be curtailed. The freedom of speech that you thought you had does not exist. So if you're a celebrity blogger, take heed and be cautious when you're speaking about another person in a negative and hurtful way. Even if you fact check, even if you verify, even if you see it with your own two eyes, think about whether or not you want to be made an example of and go down in social media infamy like Tasha K, because she is going down in social media infamy. As we speak, she's probably going to be in next year's law textbooks about libel lawsuit, because this is the first that we've seen dealing with social media. Because failure to fact check, failure to double check, to think twice about what you say could cost you. It's a big price to pay. The plus side is that people will have to become even more creative and ingenious with their content. Now that celebrity gossip is sort of radioactive at this point. I think right now it's radioactive, but after a little while this will chill and people will feel more comfortable talking about celebrities' lives. But I hope that there's a kernel of softness rather than harshness and meanness that has been rampant throughout social media. But again, this is going to encourage content creators to become even more creative in how the information that they provide in their channel. And that's never a bad thing. More creativity is always a good thing for everybody. And that is it. If you have any questions, drop that in the comment section below. If you think Tasha K is going to be able to wade through this without any issues, please let me know. Share that. Any comments are welcome. And again, thank you. This is The Legal Code, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye. Make it work.